maybe you do come from the star, and that maybe that is why you feel like you don't belong. Maybe that's why you feel that something is not quite clicking, but then once you click it, then it makes sense. And then if you already know you are a starseed or you realize you are one, then what's next? Like, what are your starseed gifts? Why are you here? What's your divine mission? Why do you reincarnate on this lifetime? For what purpose?
All right, welcome everybody to Spirituality. If you are new here, my name is Kat, and I am a long-time astral traveler and spirit consultant who is passionate about talking to other practitioners about their journey and their light work, their spiritual work. I am so pleased and honored to have joining me today Elies Hadi, who is the host of the Starseed Goddess Podcast and is a Starseed healer and light language activator. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Kat. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you. Can you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey? How did you get into doing starseed healing?
It started out in Bali, actually. So I was staying in Bali at the time, and in one of the silent day. I keep calling it silent night because of the Christmas song.
Yeah.
They actually call it silent day, but it was a silent night too. So at night, all the electricity is the lights are meant to turn off for one night, 24 hours. And so it was super dark at night. You can see the star, which usually we don't really see because of the city light.
Yeah.
I saw the Milky Way for the first time, and I was just so drawn to it and really, really love it. And then that's kind of like what it was. And then I went to sleep, and then around 4 a.m., I woke up, like those odd hours that we talk about, right? Waking in the wee hours
Hmm.
of the night. So I woke up at 4 a.m. and decided to look up at the stars again. And then I heard this feeling and this voice that says, like, you are home, that you are never alone and you are home. And that's when I was like, oh, yeah, I am home. And that's when I finally made the link that I come from the star, that I am a star seed. And the funny thing is, I've been surrounded by star seed my whole life, but never logically make that link. That my
Hmm.
friends, they all talk about like going back to the stars all the time. And I always thought like, okay, that's for you, not for me. Until that moment that I heard that voice when I connected at that 4 a.m. moment. And then I felt this profound, immense, deep, pure love that I think it was like the first time I felt like just this feeling of home, of love, of purity. It was beautiful. And that's kind of like the awakening process for me to realize that I actually am a starseed. And from then on, I deepen into my journey and naturally feel called to support more starseed who are on this journey. I was already doing spiritual coaching even before that, but that was the moment that I niched down into starseed because on my own awakening process, because I was thinking that maybe there are a lot of people who are like me who have been surrounded by starseed and right in their face but just couldn't see it for whatever reason. So I felt that there was probably like the timing was right for me at the time that yeah, it's time to talk more about it, to just kind of bring awareness and helping people who are awakened so that they understand what they are going through. Because sometimes when you're doing it on your own, you're like, am I the one going crazy? Is this even making sense? And googling sometimes doesn't really help, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the short story of how I started into the starseed work.
That's awesome. How can you tell us a little about star seeds, or if there was somebody who was questioning whether they were a star seed or wondering? I think a lot of people are trying to overcome like the 3D world, the human world socializations, and haven't quite just realized or made that connection into their spiritual home. What do you think some of the signs are that people could be looking for?
So starseed basically by definition it just means those souls who incarnate on this earth, this lifetime, who originated from other places than earth, which essentially means they are kind of foreigners, quote unquote, if you know what I mean. And because of that, they often felt like they don't belong on earth and that it is unfamiliar, they don't feel at home. One most common sign of starseed that I noticed is that they often feel that they are yearning for home and that sense of not belonging here. That's like the most common one I see alongside with other signs, but that's like the one thing that I always see. And that is kind of like what Starseed is and like the common self being Starseed. It's just about like opening an awareness that maybe you do come from the star and that maybe that is why you feel like you don't belong. Maybe that's why you feel that something is not quite clicking, but then once you click it, then you know it makes sense. And then if you already know you are a starseed or you realize you are one, then what's next? Like, what are your starseed gifts? Why are you here? What's your divine mission? Why do you reincarnate on this lifetime? For what purpose? So it's kind of like just opening the door for all these answers to be revealed, but bearing in mind that whether you know like starseed or not, it's just another name. Don't get too hung out of it. I know it sounds like funny given someone who call herself starseed healer, but that's like really one thing that is so important to notice.
Absolutely. And I think that is really relatable and can really resonate for so many people. Like I personally, I know that there were points during my spiritual journey where I literally had the random thought of, oh, this world makes me feel so tired and I just want to go home. Like that thought
Mm-hmm.
would just pop into my mind. I think that's a super relatable feeling. Um,
Exactly.
are there, and again, you can help clear any of this up. Is there like different kinds of star seeds like that come from different planets or galaxies that may have like a calling towards certain kinds of things? Do different kinds of star seeds have different kinds of drawn to purposes, do you think?
I feel that on a collective level, we are all sharing the same purpose, regardless of our
Mm-hmm.
origin. Again, whether starseed or not, which is, you know, to raise the vibration and to spread love.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I believe, to be the light, to shine light onto this 3D world, right? And on individual level, that depends on whatever soul agreement that soul has taken on. And as to specific starseed, I mean, yeah, there are different origin like Orion, Palladian, as well as some of the ancient civilization like Lemurian and Atlantis, Actuarian. There are like just so many names, and then there are
Mm-hmm.
specific traits or talents or gifts that is generally attributed to one specific type, but generally they do kind of overlap as well because in a bigger scale, like we are doing healing work. So it's just that
Mm-hmm.
minor detail that maybe I'm a little bit better at technology than you are, but you are a little bit more hands-on than I am. But at the end, you know, sometimes it overlap. And again, this is another thing is that I'm not a big fan of like like there are quizzes like which starseed origin you come from, and I'm not a big fan of those quizzes, although I mean, they are fun. I know some people love them, and I cannot guarantee I won't do it in the future too. But at this point, I'm not a fan because I found that it's again that labeling and that boxing that people starting wanting to put into their boxes. And from my experience working with Starseed, they often come out of the quizzes getting more confused because they are like, actually, I think I resonate with this and this and that and that and that. I don't think I fit into just one box. But the thing is, because you don't, you can come from multiple stars. And if we go back to like the root of it, like we have multiple star genes in our DNA. That's like another story for another time. But if we go right
Yeah.
back into that, you know, it's
Mm-hmm.
natural you resonate with more than one. It's also kind of like if you use a human example, right? Like whether you're a singer or like you're a writer or you're a speaker, all those are just people in art industry. You can't really put them into one box. Although like yeah, they do have one specific skill that are more outstanding, but on the bigger scale, they belong to the same category. If that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And I really appreciate that point of view because I think lately, especially, we've seen a proliferation of the kinds of labels that people are using. I was talking to you about that before we hit record, where I was like, okay, how do you want to identify when we start recording? There's so many different labels out there. And I think I really do. I agree with you. I think it can actually be a limiting belief to slap a label on yourself and kind of try to keep yourself in the container of that definition. Whereas, to your point, like, being a creative or an artist can encompass a lot of different things. And in fact, a lot of people do acting and writing and singing, or there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of there's a lot of overlap with creative people who want to create in different ways, and I think spirituality is absolutely the same way. So I really appreciate that point of view, that the labels are maybe not so much necessary as the purpose. As a starseed healer, what do you work with people on? Like, what does the healing process look like for the people who are starseeds?
So a lot of the deal with what I call like the starseed wounds, and some of the common starseed wounds that I see is like the fear of being seen and the fear of being heard, and really just the fear of owning your own magic and power. And that root down to long story, but like those are like the common symptom that I see in starseed. So those are the wounds that I usually work with them to help them heal their wounds so that they can, come out of the other side and reclaim their gifts and remember their mission. And most importantly, come here to do what they are here to do and to step out into their mission and share their gift and offering with the world. And the process, is different for each and every individual when we work on one-on-one. And when it comes to the generally speaking, I do actually create a introductory course, if you may, to Starseed Awakening. So in my Starseed Awakening on-demand course, I tackle everything that I just shared earlier, and I use variety of tools from Akashic healing to EFT tapping, light language, and some of the guided visualization and healing journey that I created. And, I put it all into one. It was a great introduction to people who are in the Starseed Awakening journey.
Awesome. That sounds really really informative. Can you talk a little bit about light language activation for people who are curious or maybe don't know what that is? Like, what is light language?
Yeah, light language basically is energy transmission. That's how I love to call it. Is the way to express the divine. It's a pure raw energy that is being channeled, that is being transmitted, and it can be expressed through sound, which is the common light language we often hear. And it can also be expressed through art, which can be in the form of a drawing or a written. Or it can also be expressed through hand movements. So it will be like sigil or like just hand gesture and hand light language. You see people weaving. So those are like the three types of different light language, which is spoken, written, and hand light language. And they are basically just expressing divine energy and energy transmission. And it can be used for different purpose, depends on the channeler. You can just channel raw energy and see what comes through, as long as you set the intention for it to come from love and light. Or you can get really specific, like what I usually do in my work with other people, like going as specific as doing chakras healing or activating your voice, reclaiming your power, like whatever intention you want to set. It's kind of similar to, it's not exactly the same, but for the purpose of understanding, it's kind of similar to Reiki, like how you receive Reiki. Although you don't see Reiki, you don't necessarily understand Reiki, but like there is energy being transmitted. The only difference is you can actually hear something here because it is expressed through voice and you can see it. And also that it can be used for different purpose. So in that sense, it is very similar in terms of the recipient. And so for those people who are new to it, because I realize most people have at least received one Reiki healing in their lifetime. So they are like generally pretty familiar with that in general, but not necessarily to other modality. That's why I make that comparison, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's helpful to correlate the two so people get the idea of what it is and what it's for is super helpful. So for anybody who is on a starseed awakening journey, like what would you recommend as some steps that people can take to start to grow their awareness if they're working individually just on their own, if they feel like they might have a calling to that? What are some initial steps that people can take?
If they feel that they know that they are starseed, I would say that the first acceptance will be to accept the human body and the human life experience, because you also briefly touched on that, right? That feeling that, oh, I really want to go home. And the thing is, Earth is your home now. It's like
Mm-hmm.
when I talk about priestess path, which is another thing, but like in the priestess path, we also talk about like one foot on the ground and another one, not one foot, yeah, kind of like one foot on the ground and one foot on the sky, that kind of thing, that we are connecting the ether and the practical, and the ether and the earth, right? So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
similar to that, like, yeah, we are always home because the star is always inside our heart, right? Like we are always connected, and spirit, in spirit, we are still home, It's just that the body is here, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
as above and as below. So it's really important to integrate that together. And the thing about starseed is, not everyone, but most starseed tends to want to go back home. So they are kind of trying to not want to live the life here, but then
Yeah.
that kind of defeat the purpose of why you come here. So it's like chicken and egg. You come here for a reason. So first, accept that you chose this. It might not look beautiful maybe at this point, or it might not look as clear as you desire it to be, but the moment you accept, boy, like, transformation starts with acceptance. The moment you accept that you are the one who chose to come here, and you accept this body, starting with your own human body, and you accept that, like, you are here on a mission and on this lifetime for a reason, and that you allow that to reveal itself to you, the doors will open step by step, one by one. Yeah, I would say that's like the number one step, if any.
Yeah, that's an absolutely beautiful way to say it. I appreciate that perspective a lot because again, just speaking for myself, and I don't know if other people can relate to this, but it took me a long time to find a way to love humanity, to love the experience, to love physical reality, to feel like this was a good thing being here. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that is really ingrained and socialized, especially in a lot of dogmatic religions, as the whole idea is to try and escape here, like we're trying to go to heaven or we're trying to escape a karmic cycle. And I think there's a lot of that out there. And so transforming that thought process into really appreciating and loving the journey here, being a human, and accepting that purpose, and celebrating that purpose, I think is really healing and beneficial, and allows that energy to move forward. That's a beautiful way of looking at it. What thought processes did you use to come to that conclusion? Like, is there a way that you look at humanity and humanity's path in order to have that feeling?
I was just thinking when you were talking earlier, actually, human lifetime is gone in the flesh when we look at it
Mm-hmm.
on a bigger scale. When times are tough, like, of course it feels like forever. When am I getting out of this cycle? And is this ever gonna end? I'm on a rabbit hole. I thought I've been through this again. Why are we healing the same damn thing again, right? But the
Yeah.
thing, but we are never on the same path. Actually, like, it might look similar, but the truth is every moment is different. Even if it looks exactly the same because of your perception, our perception, but it is always different. So I guess, I don't know if that directly answers your question, but that's like kind of what comes up. Like, it's just really going to be gone in the flesh. And as you were sharing, which I really love, is to celebrate life itself and to celebrate our existence. Like, oh my God, can you believe we exist? Like, how cool is that? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so the existence itself is a blessing, as being alive itself is the gift. And
Yeah,
also, like,
absolutely.
we have no idea how much joy people have just by looking at our faces or hearing our voice, and even just by walking past. I mean, people don't scream and shout at your face, but you have no idea the difference you make. I can almost be so sure that it is more than what we think it is, because we often discredit ourselves than give ourselves credit. So yeah.
Yeah, and that, I feel like that relates back to, I was wanting to ask you about how do you help people? What advice do you have when people are trying to open up and trying to share and wanting to get over that fear of being seen? Because I relate, I resonate with that so much because I kind of like, I was in the closet about all of my spiritual experiences for like 30 years and then decided, okay, I'm starting a YouTube channel. I'm going to start talking to other people. I'm going to start putting myself out there. But it really took me a long time to say, okay, I'm not hiding from this anymore. I need to get out and be seen and speak. And it's a lot to overcome. Like, what advice do you have for people who are going through that fear of being seen and being out there?
That's such a great question. I was just doing an EFT tapping on that, I think 2 days ago. So it starts first and foremost by giving yourself full permission to not be seen. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it's okay. Then you immediately release the need to fight or resist anything. That you give yourself full permission that it's okay to stay hidden, it's okay to hide, it's okay to not be seen, it's okay. And at the same time, you also give yourself full permission to be seen, to be found, to be visible. That way, you give yourself a choice. You are not forcing yourself either way. And then you start to first come to acceptance on that. And now that you know you have a choice, understand that being seen is safe, like start working on that. And EFT tapping is one of a great way to do that. But there are so many other modality, doesn't have to be that. But I was just using this as an example, like you start to explore that the reason that you want to stay hidden is because it feels safe. That's like one of the belief system. But the thing is, what if it's also safe to be seen? And that is actually fun and it's actually interesting. So of course, like as with any work, it starts with inner work, and this is just like one example of how that might look like on the inner side of things. But it also start with the outside work, like you were saying, go and start the YouTube channel. Oh, well, it's not right, but just start small, like one baby step. If you're afraid to show your face, then maybe share your voice. If you're afraid to share your voice, then maybe share your writing. And it doesn't have to be one big post, right? Like maybe just one quote, like just one thing. We all start somewhere.
Yeah.
Like I started the journey in 2016, and I remember I will be looking at Facebook screen, and the Facebook screen will look back at me, and I still write nothing because I was like,
Yeah,
I mean, we all have done that once, right?
Listen, for anybody out there who's struggling with this or feeling like that, I was an incredibly introverted and anxious person who was constantly worried about how everybody else was seeing me. And when I went to start a YouTube channel, I think I spent the first 3 months just recording videos of myself and getting used to looking at myself on the screen and listening to my own voice coming back at me. Like it was months before I actually released a video, and because I finally felt comfortable enough just looking at myself on the screen. So it's the baby steps are helpful, and don't beat up on yourself too much, because I think a lot of people have absolutely been there, where it's like it takes a little bit of acclimation to feel safe doing stuff for the first time. So absolutely.
That's
Can
a
you talk a
beautiful
little bit?
story, Kat. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it
just
takes
want to
some getting
quickly,
used
just
to.
want to quickly add on what you were sharing is that
Yeah.
for us to be seen, we must first see ourselves too. So like you were saying, even the fact that you are allowing yourself to see yourself in video and hear yourself, and it will be so cringy at the beginning. You'll be like, I don't sound like that. I'm pretty sure I'm not that pitchy, whatever, like,
Oh my
but,
gosh.
but just getting used to it, it takes time, but then you'll get there.
It
I still do
absolutely
that
does.
too sometimes, like, oh, why?
The first time I ever walked into the living room and my husband was watching one of my videos on the 75-inch TV in the living room, it was so cringe. I couldn't even look at it. It was my
Mm-hmm.
face giant in the living room and my voice everywhere, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm going for a walk. I can't even look at it." It was
Amplified,
very
like,
unsettling. Yes, exactly.
mm-hmm.
It was, oh gosh, I could see every pore, and all of those thought processes started, and it really it really is a journey to feeling safe and comfortable within yourself, to put yourself out there. So I think that's very natural for everybody. Can you can you tell me a little bit about tapping? I've watched a tapping seminar because I was curious about it, but I'm not a practitioner of it. And can you talk a little bit about what that is and what it does for people?
So EFT tapping basically work through the meridian points. And the way I like to explain it is that it is working on two parts, which is the releasing and then the reprogramming. So oftentimes when people are new to EFT tapping and then they're like, why are you tapping in all the negative stuff? No, you're not tapping in the negative stuff. You are just working through those points to help release all those blockages by tapping those points, and the fact that you are actually acknowledging and accepting those, so to speak, quote unquote negative stuff is actually very empowering, because at that moment, as I was sharing earlier, right, like you then stop resisting, you stop fighting, it's gone. Because at the end it's all inner conflict, but the moment you accept both sides of the polarity, that charge is gone. So that's like the point of EFT tapping. You acknowledge all the limiting belief, and then once you clear that, it helps to release the charges, as I call it, and then you start to tap in the empowering things that you want to put in, that I love to be seen, it is safe to be seen, and things like that. And I love EFT tapping just because of how accessible it is for people and how gentle it is. And most importantly, it really works really great emotionally. Like sometimes I found myself tapping halfway and then the emotion will come out. And sometimes I don't even understand where it come from. And that's okay. It's just trapped emotion being released, and that's beautiful. And it is one of those tools that you often feel immediate shift. That's why you see
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of practitioners like to make you, scale it right out, 1 out of 10, and then you scale it and change and see if the scale goes down in terms of the emotion you feel and things like that. I don't really work with scale because I think that it makes people overthink sometimes. But then if you want to actually see result, because some people really need that, then yeah, you can, work with those emotional skill just to see, if there is a before and after.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting and probably like a healthy and less complicated. I think a lot of times when we're trying to work through healing or negative emotions, we spend a lot of time stewing in the whys or looking for the why. Like, why do I feel this way? What happened to me? And rather than just accepting that that's how it is and releasing it. So I think people sometimes do get themselves kind of trapped in a cycle of thought, trying to find
Mm-hmm.
the reasons why they feel some way, instead of just saying it's okay that I do feel this way. There's no reason to dig into it, and I can release that and let it go. So that's I think that's an interesting way to go about it. I think a lot of people do it the other way by looking for all of the reasons why, you know.
Yeah, and it become like a rabbit hole.
Mhm. Yeah, some of that, because to your point, I mean, some of it might be coming from your uh like past lives or your Akashic record. I mean, there's going to be some things that maybe we don't know why. We don't know why.
And we don't
Um,
have to either.
hmm And you spoke earlier about doing like an Akashic clearing or an Akashic reading. Can you speak on that a little bit? And just
Mm-hmm.
maybe with a brief explanation if there's people out there who aren't sure what the Akashic record is.
Mm-hmm. So Akashic Records basically is this energetic giant library. That's how I call it, like an energetic
Hmm.
giant library that has all the information about your soul that you need. And I was told by my guides that whenever we enter the Akashic Records, which is accessible to everyone, everyone can access it, is that you will be given exactly what you need at the time. Not more, not less. And
Hmm.
sometimes it can be blank, and that is answer too. Like the silence sometimes is an answer. And by going to, I don't do so much of a reading in the sense that I'm gonna read out all your past life and what happened in your memory. That's not like what I focus on. But when I work with the Akashic, I work more in just going into to clear all contracts that no longer serve you. For example, healing poverty vow, any lifetime where you have taken a vow to stay poor, because spiritual means you have to be poor and you cannot be rich. And then we clear that contract so that we can write a new agreement that you can be spiritual and be rich and abundant and help people and get paid and all those things. Just an example. And another way I work with the Akashic is also to help them recall their gifts, so that it's not just about like clearing trauma, is also about assessing the gift, that what is your soul gift that maybe you have forgotten, and let's go into the record and remember them again. But at the end, it's about soul remembrance journey, and it's to the level of the willingness of the individual as to what is being presented, and it's always at divine time, because sometimes, because of the way we have been taught in the society is like we need all the information, as more is better, but sometimes it's not. Like, how many times have we been overwhelmed when people give you like a pamphlet of 10 pages, right? Like, you don't need all the 10 pages. You maybe only need that one point or one picture, right? So it's the same thing here. Is whatever you need will be revealed and shown to you. That's what I've been told by my guide, and that's how I work with my clients as well.
Yeah, I think that there's an element of trust in there, right? Because some things, even though they may be a part of your past lives or your record, they may not be valuable for you to know or recall at this time. It may actually just confuse things or send you spiraling down a path of things that you don't need to worry about. So there's some
And
value
it adds
in
up to
trusting the information.
the labeling too. Like, if you don't need, then you end up with having this label like, oh, I was a queen and I was a king, then so what, right?
Right. You're the whole point is you're trying to be something else this time around, so you don't need to worry about that. Right? Like so we don't need to you don't need to go buy a crown and feel special over that. We were trying to go for something different this time around. So some of that information is not really necessary at this time for the highest and greatest good of what you're trying to achieve now.
Yeah, coming back to trusting, as you were saying.
Yeah, trusting the unfolding of the path. I appreciate you so much being here. I feel like I learned so much in such a short period of time. It feels really empowering. It was a great conversation. Do you want to, real fast, before we sign off, let people know where they can find you? Any websites or programs or where the podcast is?
Mm-hmm. So you can reach out to me on Instagram at Elies Hadi. That's where I'm most active social media wise. You can also find my podcast, Starseed Goddess Podcast, and website by the same name, Elies Hadi. You'll be able to find my Starseed Awakening course on the website as well. So I will just leave everything on the show notes so you can just check it out there. There is also a free Starseed Activation journey where you get to discover all the 7 common signs of being a starseed and get to meet your star family in the journey. So that will be something cool for those of you who are not sure if you're a starseed and wanting to get started on the journey. Once again, everything can be found on my website.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll make sure all of those links are in the description so it's easy for people to follow and get to. Thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to meet you and an awesome conversation.
Thank you, Kat. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I trust that it will be of value to whoever that come to us.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. Follow the links and go check out the websites and the podcast. It sounds like there's some incredible information there. And we will see you guys next time on Spirituality.
Bye.